Hey machine enthusiasts! Over the last months I collected your requests and today I'm excited to take a look at some of those. There's a whole bunch of gems coming up which I hope will connect the dots and inspire you to use your machine differently. But first, send us some love, hit the bell below and subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks. And without further ado, let's jump right into the first tip. Did you know it's possible to route several pads in Maschine to the same VST instrument? It's almost like taking a section of keyboard mode and smashing it into pad mode, giving you the best of both worlds. This is great for customized melody sections and also to save some precious CPU. Here's how it works. In this project, I have a Massive X loaded already on pad number 13. It's called Essential 8 and it's mind-blowing. Check this out. But I want to play a whole melody with this preset. Now, instead of going back and forth between keyboard mode and pad mode, I select the empty pad next to the Massive X, open up its channel settings, and here on the output tab on page number 3 you'll find the option to route it to any other sound here in that group. In my case, I want to route it back to sound number 13, Essential 8, which is the Massive X. So once I selected this, the pad will play that Massive X. Let's duplicate that note just 2 more times. I have 3 notes. Here, all of them are sounding the same. Activating pad mode gives me access to the transposing buttons over here. So I could, for example, go in, take that, bring it down by 1 octave, bring it up by 1 semitone. Okay, I have 2 notes already. Let's see if we can also modify the 4th one here and bring it up a semitone. Great, 4 notes to my disposal and I can record a new pattern. This is really handy also if you work on finger drumming routines, because that way you can save some precious CPU power, load one VST instrument and have a couple of pads just using the same instrument. Now, some of you might wonder, how do I control the plugin now? If I hit one of these notes, it doesn't show the Massive X. Only pad 13 opens up Massive X, for example, to change the cutoff here. I worked around this by creating a macro on group level, which is this one here, and it simply controls the cutoff parameter. So no matter which note I am pressing here, the cutoff will be always where I need it. I'm always a huge advocate for using the audio drag and drop in Maschine for many different purposes. Here in this track, I want to export some of these sound effect samples. This vocal sample over here has a whole kind of delay tail which runs for quite some time. If I would drag and drop this loop in the usual way, using this audio drag and drop icon over here and bringing it to, for example, a sound or the desktop, I would lose the whole delay tail because it creates seamless loops. I want to chop it up though, so it's really important that I keep and preserve the delay tail. Here's what I do. I go into the export audio dialog, open it up just once, and uncheck this little box that says Loop Optimize. After this, I can close the window again, and from now onwards, the audio drag and drop will create extended files which will preserve the delay tail, and you can see it here. Yeah, everything is properly decaying. If you should have any effects like reverbs or delays that keep on playing, or maybe even synthesizers with some notes that are still decaying, that way the audio drag and drop will always preserve everything you need. Have you ever tried using Maschine's chord sets in combination with the arpeggiator? It can give you many new ideas, so let me show you how to set it up. In this project, I have FM8 playing the Glitter Strummer preset, which sounds just magic. Let's bring on chord mode and select the chord sets. I want to roll with a more advanced one, so I bring it to, for example, the minor 7 with a little more complex jazzy chords. Now, the magic starts to happen once you go into note repeat, you hold that button and you lock it. This means that even if you let go of the note repeat button again, the arpeggiator will stay active. Since we already are in chords mode, this means that hitting a pad here is starting to arpeggiate a whole chord sequence. Ooh, beautiful. Now let's record a pattern. I love the velocity sensitivity of Maschine's pads, but in some situations, especially when I finger drum, I would prefer, for example, the bass kicks to be at a fixed velocity. Of course, I could hit the fixed velocity button, but then all the sounds would play at full volume. So instead, I go into Maschine Sampler. Here, I select the bass kick, go into the sampler, and on page number 6, you'll find a knob that maps the velocity to the volume of the sample. If I bring this down to 0%, this means that the velocity sensitivity is turned off. And no matter how hard I hit the bass kick, it's always the same level, whereas the snare and the hi-hat will still be very sensitive. It is possible to send program change messages to every instrument inside Maschine. You can even program them into a pattern, and this gives you many possibilities for live performances and sound design. For this example, I'm using laser bass, which is running in Reactor, and I already programmed a little pattern. It sounds like this. Now let's move over to the software. Here, below the pattern lane, you'll find another control lane. Normally you would use this to program the velocity for all the notes. Let's press this little plus over here and open up a new empty controller lane, which is not assigned yet. But I can actually do this by right-clicking it and selecting one of these messages here from the list. I want to roll with a program change, which is used to change programs or presets inside an instrument. So let's select program change and program one event here. Depending on the value of this event here, it will bring you to another preset in the instrument. I already prepared a pattern with some really interesting program changes beforehand. So let's go to pattern number 3. Woo! So the first couple of notes are coming from one preset. Let's check it out. And then with the second event here, it switches to preset 66. And both of them together sound really cool. Let's bring in some drums. Here's another pattern with even more program changes. Really cool. Here there are 5 program changes in total, and each of them is bringing laser bass to another preset. So this is really cool, as you hear, for sound design with these crazy presets that change themselves all the time. But it's also really useful in context of a live performance where you would need to save a little bit of CPU because you have a whole project and a whole kind of show that you want to play. In that way, you would only need one VST instrument, and actually the different presets come from the program changes inside of the pattern. Have you ever wondered what the 2 nudge buttons are doing? They allow you to rotate and shift around a pattern rhythmically. For example, I can listen to this pattern, hold down Shift and hit the nudge button to the right, and it will rotate the whole pattern to the right-hand side. Whenever there are notes falling off the screen, they will again pop up in the beginning, and this is why I talk about rotating. It's almost like a cycle of things. So let's nudge it a little more and see where it's bringing us. One more time. So I can really experiment while I'm listening to the loop and see which pattern works best. Maybe even come up with some variations that I'll be using later. So this is where the nudge buttons come in creatively. But they also have a very practical use case. When you are a beginner in Maschine, it sometimes happens that in the heat of the moment when you record drums or something like this, that you are actually off the grid, not on the first bar, but the snare drum is actually on number 1 of the beat, and it's kind of a little bit offset. Let me show you what I mean. When I started that pattern, you maybe noticed that the clap was the first thing that started playing. So the whole pattern is kind of off, and I would like to rotate it around so everything is in line with the metronome. Let's listen to this quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, everything is off. Once I start bringing in more elements, I will get myself into deep trouble. So I'll be using the nudge buttons now. First of all, hold down Shift and pressing follow allows me to access the step grid over here. So currently it's on 1/16, which is a very small increment. So let's bring it up to a quarter notes. This will help me to shift it a little bit better. So back to events. And let's move it to, for example, the right-hand side by 1/4 note. All right, and hitting the nudge button 2 times, fixed it, and the metronome is in line with the original pattern again. And I can start bringing in more elements now. Did you know it's possible to use any external effect inside Maschine? Here I got this beautiful big sky reverb, and let me show you how to integrate it into your workflow. The very first thing I'm gonna do now is open up the settings. Here, if you move over to the hardware tab, you'll find an option to untangle the headphone outputs from the main outs. Normally, they both mirror each other, so you can use the headphones anytime you want. But for this example, I'll bring it to line out. This makes sure that the main and the phones, as you can see here in the graphic, become separate outputs that I can use inside my Maschine project. Once this has happened, I connected the headphone output to my external effect over here, to both of the inputs. So there's a stereo connection between Maschine and the external effect over here. I also made sure to connect the stereo out of this external effect with the stereo in of Maschine again. So now I have a whole kind of loop, a return, a send and return circuit that integrates the big sky. In order to make it audible and use it inside of an aux channel of Maschine, I'm going to be using an empty sound over here. It's pad 16, and I'm also going to color it a little differently. For these like effect channels, I use fuchsia or magenta, so it really separates it from the rest, and I know it's an effect and not a kind of a sample that I can play. Once this has happened, I open up the channel settings of sound number 16, because I need to make sure to route the signal back from the external effect. So I need an input channel. With this knob over here, I select input channel number 1, left and right. And I'm also gonna be just increasing the volume to the maximum of 10 dB to really make sure that we have a good volume coming back from the external effect. So let's start the beat here. And I'm gonna be selecting the rim shot to apply the reverb now. And here in its output settings page, I select external 2 as an auxiliary. So the rim shot is going to be sent out here from the headphone to the external effect, and it comes back on the stereo in here on that sound. So let's try and increase the volume a little bit and see if the reverb comes in. There it is. Let's open up the decay a little bit more. Please note that it's important to set your external effect to 100% wet setting, otherwise you will create a kind of a doubling of your sample. You don't want that, we only want the tail. So bring it to 100%, and this gives you only the effect. Right, okay, I can change the presets over here. And do some dub mixing action here. Let's bring it back to cloud and move over to this little laser shot sound. And also here I'm gonna be using the auxiliary 1 to increase the reverb on that one. Bring it over to magneto again. Yeah, so it really starts to feel like a plugin, although it's an external effect on your desk. It's amazing. And if you have any external effects flying around your studio, I would highly encourage you to try this out. Now, the next one is a real time saver. Whenever you want to tweak several samples at once, this is possible using the multi-selection. You hold down select and activate multi over here. Now you can add as many samples as you want to your selection. Currently I added the kick drum, the snare drum and this hi-hat. And whenever you tweak a knob here in the sampler settings, this will be mirrored into all of the connected sounds. So let's move over quickly and activate the SP1200 simulation here. And to make it really audible, bring down the tune of all the samples by 2 semitones. Okay, sounds heavy now. Let's drive the saturation a little. And lastly, a little bit of compression on top. Sweet. So instead of going into each of these samplers respectively and tweaking all the knobs, you can do it all in one go. Just note that after you finish tweaking your multi-selection, I'd recommend to quickly deactivate the multi-selection again, otherwise you will run into funny situations later on. Did you know it's possible to connect your machine to an external drum pad and play all the drum kits with sticks? You connect the MIDI out of your external drum pad to machine's MIDI in. And in the settings dialog, you can move over to the MIDI tab and activate Maschine MK3's MIDI input. You just turn it on here. So now Maschine is listening to whatever's going on in your drum pad, but we need to find out on which channel the drum pad is actually sending its MIDI information. Of course, I could reach out and look and read manuals and look for MIDI implementation charts and things like this, but you know what's the faster way to do this? It's called a MIDI monitor. A MIDI monitor is able to sniff out all the messages coming here from any kind of MIDI controller, and you find them free on the webs. And I've downloaded one of those, and I'll be hitting a pad now on the external drum pad. And actually, let me hit all of them. And in the MIDI monitor, it will tell me that all of the signals that have been played are coming out on channel number 6. This is the information that I need. So I can go into Machine's group settings, and in the channel settings, activate the manual MIDI input. Here again, I'll be selecting the source I formerly switched on, the Maschine MK3. And also from the MIDI monitor, I know that my corresponding channel is number 6. All right, let's take a stick and see what happens here. Okay, works. With the start node, I can actually change the range similar to modifying the range in keyboard mode. I can change the range on the pad controller here. And start playing right away. Or you can even take it up a notch and get even more creative. Do you still remember Polyplex? The cool thing about Polyplex is that it has this randomizer built-in that allows you to randomize samples. And the way I like to use it is down here. There's this little cube. You can right-click this one here and activate the MIDI learn. When I hit this pad over here, it's mapped to the cube of Polyplex, to the randomizer. How about using Machine's internal bass synth and play it on the drum pad to come up with an acid line? In some of my previous tutorials, we had some machines running in the background, and some folks were asking, what's up with that light show? It's called Vegas mode. And on Maschine MK3, you activate it by holding these 4 buttons, browser, sampling, left arrow, right arrow, at once while you turn it on. This will bring you right into Vegas mode, where all the pads start lighting up and there are some graphics here in the display that cycle through. On Maschine Studio, it's the exact same key combination. You hold it down, turn on Maschine Studio, and here you go. Vegas mode is lit up. And on Maschine Jam, you hold down the browse button while you plug in the USB cable. Here you go. This episode wouldn't have been possible without your help. Thanks a lot for your inspiration, and feel free to drop more ideas and questions in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the bell and subscribe, and as always, thank you so much for your attention, and see you again soon.